He swore he'd destroy me. So why am I married to him? One day, my father died. The next, our family business was collapsing, and my only lifeline was the man who'd spent years trying to ruin us. But here's the twist. The deeper I fell into this marriage, the more I realized he might be the only one who can save me. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. The chandeliers above the ballroom glittered like frozen stars, casting gold and silver light over silk gowns, polished shoes, and the clink of champagne glasses. Emma Hart stood near the grand staircase, her spine straight, her smile carefully practiced. She'd been taught from a young age that in public, the Harts never showed weakness. But tonight, weakness felt like it was dripping from her skin, and she was doing everything she could to hide it. Her family's winery, Hart and Vale, was days away from bankruptcy. Competitors had been slicing at her business from every angle, distribution contracts cancelled, suppliers turning away, and rumors poisoning their brand. And at the center of it all was Lucas Vale. He was here tonight. She could feel it before she even saw him. When he appeared at the top of the staircase, wearing a black tailored suit that fit him like it had been stitched directly onto his body, the air in the room seemed to shift. People turned to look. A man like Lucas Vale didn't enter a room, he claimed it. Mia's jaw tightened. The Vale family had been rivals to the Harts for as long as she could remember. But Lucas had taken that rivalry to another level, playing a slow, deliberate game of destruction. And he was winning. She turned away, hoping he wouldn't notice her, but she should have known better. Emma Hart, his voice slid through the air behind her, low and smooth. She inhaled and turned. Lucas Vale. Enjoying the evening? He asked, a faint smirk curving his lips. As much as I enjoy root canals, she replied flatly. His smirk widened. Still sharp-tongued, I see. And you're still here, she said, letting her eyes flick toward the crowd. I would have thought you'd be off somewhere celebrating the destruction of my company. He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. I don't celebrate halfway victories. She felt her stomach twist, but she kept her voice calm. Then maybe you should save the champagne. We're not done yet. Lucas studied her for a long moment, his eyes dark and unreadable. On the contrary, MIA. We are. She frowned. What do you mean? He leaned in slightly, his breath brushing her ear. I'm giving you one chance to end this war. Marry me. Her body went cold. Excuse me. You heard me. His tone was almost casual, but his gaze was sharp, measuring her reaction. Marry me, and I'll stop dismantling your family's business. I'll even help you rebuild it. She laughed, short, bitter. Do you hear yourself? You've spent the last year trying to destroy me, and now you want to marry me. It's a strategic alliance, he said simply. Our families combined would be untouchable. You'd keep your company. I'd get what I want. And what exactly do you want? She asked, crossing her arms. His eyes locked onto hers. You. For a moment, she couldn't speak. That's ridiculous, she finally said. I wouldn't marry you if it meant saving your father's legacy, he interrupted softly. Think carefully, MIA. You're out of options. Your suppliers are mine now. Your investors are nervous. In 2 weeks, you won't have a business to save. Her hands curled into fists. You're a vulture. And you, he said, smiling faintly, are a very smart woman. Smart enough to see the deal I'm offering. She shook her head. You think I'd let you own me? I think, he said, lowering his voice again, that you'd rather be married to me than watch everything your father built turn to ash. The music swelled in the background, but MIA barely heard it. Her mind was spinning. This is insane, she said. Maybe, Lucas said. But it's also your best chance. He stepped back, adjusting his cufflinks like the conversation had been about nothing more than weather. I'll expect your answer soon. She glared at him. Don't hold your breath. He smiled. Oh, I can wait. But your business can't. 2 days later, after hours of sleepless nights, endless calls with lawyers, and the sinking realization that Lucas was right, she called him. Her voice was cold when she said, "Fine. I'll marry you." There was a pause. She could almost hear his smile through the phone. Excellent choice. The wedding date was set for 3 weeks later. On the day of the wedding, Emma stood in her dressing room, staring at herself in the mirror. The white silk gown shimmered under the soft lights, her hair pinned perfectly, makeup flawless. She looked like a bride from a magazine, but she felt like a prisoner walking into a gilded cage. Her best friend, Claire, whispered, "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Mia replied quietly. "If I don't, Heart and Veil is gone. My father's name will be dragged through the mud. Everything he worked for, gone." Claire's eyes filled with sympathy. "Just be careful with him. He's dangerous." Mia's lips pressed into a thin line. "So am I." The church was breathtaking, white roses climbing the altar, gold accents catching the sunlight through stained glass. Guests filled the pews, murmuring behind delicate programs. On one side sat the remnants of the Hart family's allies, on the other, the powerful, cold-eyed figures of the Veil network. The tension in the air was thick enough to taste. When the music began, Mia stepped into the aisle. Every head turned. Her father should have been there to walk her down, but instead, she walked alone. Each step echoed in her chest. At the altar, Lucas waited. He looked calm, almost relaxed, but his gaze never left her. When she reached him, he offered his hand. She hesitated for a split second before placing hers in his. His grip was warm, steady, too steady. The ceremony began. "Do you, Lucas Veil, take Mia Hart to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do," Lucas said without hesitation. "Do you, Mia Hart, take Lucas Veil?" Her throat tightened. She forced the words out. "I do." They exchanged rings. When Lucas slid the band onto her finger, his thumb brushed her skin in a way that felt almost intimate. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant said. Lucas leaned in. His lips brushed hers briefly, a kiss that was polite for the audience, but his eyes when he pulled back told her it was a message, "You're mine now." The reception was a glittering spectacle. Wine flowed, laughter rang out, cameras flashed. But beneath it all was the hum of political tension. Every smile felt calculated, every toast a negotiation. Mia noticed Lucas speaking quietly with her uncle, Richard. The two exchanged a subtle nod, and Lucas moved away. When she approached Richard, he gave her a tight smile. "Congratulations, Mia." "Thanks," she said slowly. "I didn't know you and Lucas were close." "We've spoken," Richard replied, sipping his wine. "Business matters." Something in his tone made her uneasy. Later, in her dressing room, away from the crowd, she found a folded piece of paper sitting on the vanity. She opened it, and her stomach turned at the words written in sharp, neat handwriting. "You married your father's killer." Her hands shook. When she stepped back into the ballroom, Lucas was waiting at the door. "Everything all right?" he asked, his voice calm. She stared at him, the note burning in her hand. "Perfect," she lied. His eyes searched hers for a moment, but he said nothing. The limousine glided away from the wedding reception, the golden lights of the hotel fading into the night. Inside, the air was quiet except for the low hum of the engine. Emma sat on one side of the seat, keeping her eyes on the passing streets. Lucas sat across from her, his arm resting lazily on the leather. He looked like a man entirely at ease, not like someone who had just married a woman who had once called him her enemy. "You're quiet," he said after a while. "I have nothing to say to you," Mia replied. "That's a lie," Lucas said, his eyes narrowing just slightly. "You always have something to say. You're just choosing to hold it in right now." She turned to face him, her voice sharp. "What do you expect? To sit here and make small talk like we're in love?" His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "No. But I do expect you to stop looking like you've been forced into the gallows. That's exactly how it feels, she said flatly. Lucas leaned forward slightly, resting his elbows on his knees. Then maybe you need to stop thinking of this as a loss. Think of it as a repositioning. Her jaw tightened. A repositioning where you win and I have to pretend to be your loving wife. You agreed to this, he reminded her. To save my company, she snapped. Exactly, Lucas said calmly. So, at least for appearances, you and I have to play the part. Every glance, every word, people will be watching. They'll be looking for weakness. And weakness, MIA, is an invitation for vultures. She hated that he was right. Still, she met his gaze without flinching. Fine. I'll play my part. But don't think for 1 second that this means I trust you. I wouldn't dream of it, he said smoothly. They arrived at his penthouse, now their penthouse, towering above the city. The elevator doors opened to reveal a sprawling space of glass and steel, with a wall of windows that looked out over the glittering skyline. It's cold, Emma said before she could stop herself. Lucas arched a brow. Cold. It looks like a hotel lobby. No warmth. No life. His lips curved slightly. Then I suppose you'll have to warm it up. She ignored the comment and set her clutch down on the marble counter. Lucas loosened his tie, watching her. Our first night as husband and wife, he said slowly. What shall we do? Sleep in separate rooms, she replied without hesitation. He chuckled, low in his throat. You think distance will make you safer? I know it will make me saner, she said, walking past him toward what she hoped was a guest room. MIA, he called after her. She turned. He stepped closer, stopping just a foot away. You may not trust me yet. But remember this, I'm the only thing standing between you and complete ruin. Her heartbeat kicked up, but she refused to let it show. And I'm the only thing standing between you and a knife in the back. For a moment, they stared at each other, two people bound by a deal neither of them truly trusted. Lucas's lips curved again. Good night, Mrs. Vale. Later that night, when she couldn't sleep, MIA wandered into his study. The room was dimly lit, the shelves lined with thick legal binders and leather-bound books. On the desk, a folder sat in plain sight, labeled in neat black letters. Hart Winery. Confidential. Her pulse quickened. She picked it up, her fingers trembling slightly. But before she could open it, the door clicked shut behind her. I see you've found my files. Lucas's voice came from the shadows. MIA turned slowly. He was leaning against the doorframe, barefoot, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. What's in it? She demanded. Information, he said lightly. Some of it true, some of it not. You'll have to read it to know which is which. She took a step toward the desk. Then I'll read it now. Or, he said, stepping forward, you could put it down and ask me directly. Her eyes narrowed. And why would I trust your answer? You wouldn't, he said, his gaze steady. But you might enjoy hearing me say it. Before she could respond, he picked up a wine glass from the desk and took a slow sip. But the liquid inside wasn't wine. It was thicker, darker, and the smell that reached her was metallic. MIA stared. What is that? Lucas's expression didn't change. A reminder, he said softly, that nothing is ever what it seems. The next morning, MIA sat at the long glass dining table, coffee cup in hand, staring out at the skyline. She hadn't slept. The image of Lucas drinking that strange red liquid was still stuck in her mind. He walked in, looking annoyingly composed in a crisp shirt and dark trousers. You look like you've seen a ghost, he said, pouring himself coffee. Maybe I have, she replied coolly. He sat across from her, his expression unreadable. If you're still thinking about last night, I can explain. She raised an eyebrow. Go ahead. He leaned back in his chair. Your father wasn't a saint, MIA. The Harts and the Vales have a history, one your father never told you about. Decades ago, he took something from my family. Something worth millions. And I've spent years getting it back. What did he take? A proprietary wine formula, Lucas said. Created by my grandfather. Your father stole it, branded it as Hart and Vale's signature blend, and built his empire on it. Mia shook her head. No. My father wouldn't. He would, Lucas interrupted. And he did. You're lying, she said firmly. Maybe, Lucas said with a faint smile. Or maybe your father lied to you. Either way, it doesn't change where we are now. She stared at him, anger and doubt twisting inside her. So all of this marriage, is about revenge. Partly, he admitted. But also about protection. Protection from what? Lucas didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a sip of coffee and set the cup down with precision. Let's just say there are people who want you gone. And if you knew who they were, you wouldn't sleep at night. Mia's frustration boiled over. Then tell me. You're not ready to hear it, he said quietly. She let out a sharp laugh. That's convenient. Lucas's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, his expression tightening slightly before he answered. Did you get it? He asked into the phone. Mia's attention sharpened. Good, Lucas said. Keep it hidden. If she finds out the truth, we're both dead. He hung up, ignoring her questioning look. I have a meeting. Don't leave the building. When he was gone, Mia went back into the study. Her hands shook as she opened the Hart Winery confidential file. Inside was a stack of documents, and at the very top, a glossy photo of her father, shaking hands with a man Mia had believed was dead for years. Her breath caught. Something told her this marriage had far more secrets than she'd imagined. The next morning, Mia barely touched her breakfast. The photo from Lucas's file sat like a stone in her mind. Her father, alive, shaking hands with a man she thought was buried years ago. Lucas had left early without saying where he was going, and the penthouse felt too quiet, too large. She decided to make a call to her Uncle Richard. When he picked up, his voice was smooth but guarded. Mia. Settling into married life. Don't pretend you care, she said sharply. I need to ask you something about Dad. A pause. What about him? I found something. A photo. It looked recent. And... Mia, Richard interrupted, his voice taking on a warning tone. Let the past stay buried. Some things you don't want to dig up. Her pulse jumped. Why? What do you know? Drop it, Richard said firmly, and the line went dead. Mia stared at the phone. Richard had always been evasive, but this was different. By afternoon, she decided to look for answers somewhere else, the old Hart and Vale office archives. She slipped out of the penthouse without telling Lucas. In the dusty records room, she went through old contracts, shipping receipts, anything that might link her father to the man in the photo. But before she could find much, a shadow appeared in the doorway. Lucas. His jaw was tight, his eyes dangerous. I told you not to leave the building. I'm not your prisoner, she shot back. No, he said, stepping closer, but you're in more danger than you understand. Every time you wander off, you give our enemies an opening. Our enemies? She asked, crossing her arms. Or yours? They're the same now, Lucas said flatly. She wanted to argue, but the way he said it, the absolute certainty, made her hesitate. Why won't you just tell me everything? She asked quietly. Because once I do, there's no going back, he replied. And I'm not ready to lose you. The words caught her off guard. Before she could respond, his phone buzzed. He answered, his expression sharpening instantly. What? His voice was low but urgent. I'm on my way. He hung up, turning to her. Stay here. Do not leave. But an hour later, Mia got a frantic call from Claire. There's a fire at the vineyard. MIA didn't think. She grabbed her keys and drove out there. When she arrived, smoke was rolling up into the night sky, flames licking at the old wooden barn where barrels were stored. Workers were shouting, running back and forth with hoses and extinguishers. Her heart dropped, and then she saw him. Richard. He was walking quickly toward a black SUV, his coat pulled tight, his face half hidden. Richard, she called. He didn't turn. The SUV roared away. MIA. She spun and saw Lucas running toward her, his shirt dirty, a cut on his cheek. He grabbed her arm. What are you doing here? It's not safe. I saw Richard, she said breathlessly. He was here. He started this, didn't he? Lucas didn't answer right away. Tell me, she demanded. Finally, he said, yes, he did. And it's not the first time. They stood in the orange glow of the fire, the smell of burning wood and wine heavy in the air. May stared at him, the truth beginning to click into place. This isn't just business rivalry. This is war. Lucas's jaw tightened. It's been war for years. You just didn't know it. That night, they were back at the penthouse. MIA was exhausted, covered in smoke, but she couldn't sleep. She went to the kitchen for water, and found Lucas already there, pouring himself a drink. They stared at each other in the dim light. You could have told me sooner, she said. I could have, Lucas agreed. But you wouldn't have believed me. Try me, she said. His gaze lingered on her for a moment before he shook his head. Not yet. Her frustration bubbled up again. You think keeping me in the dark protects me, but it doesn't. It just makes me feel like I'm drowning. Lucas stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint scent of smoke still clinging to him. You're not drowning, MIA. You're learning to swim in a shark tank. For a moment, their eyes locked, and the air between them shifted. Her heart thudded harder, but she stepped back. I'm going to bed, she said quickly. Good night, he replied, though his voice was low, almost unreadable. The fire had been contained, but the damage was bad. Half the year's wine stock was destroyed. Insurance would cover some of it, but not enough to undo the blow. Lucas had spent most of the day in meetings, his phone never leaving his hand. MIA stayed in the penthouse, restless. She kept replaying the sight of Richard leaving the vineyard. Why would her own uncle sabotage the family business? By evening, Lucas returned. He looked exhausted but still controlled. I spoke to the investigators, he said. They'll find Richard. It's only a matter of time. You make it sound easy, MIA said. He poured himself a drink. It's not. But I have ways of making people talk. She gave him a look. That doesn't sound legal. Lucas met her gaze without flinching. Do you care? Her silence was answer enough. The next day, MIA overheard something that made her stop cold. She was walking past the kitchen when she heard Lucas's assistant, Mark, speaking quietly on the phone. Yes, I've been keeping her out of it, Mark said. But Lucas can't hide her forever. Especially not from her. Huh? When Mark saw MIA standing there, he froze. Mrs. Vale, I didn't see you. Who were you talking about? MIA asked. No one, Mark said quickly. Just business. She narrowed her eyes. A woman. Mark's jaw tightened. I shouldn't say. Which, of course, made her need to know even more. That night, Lucas said he had to take care of something off the grid. The moment he left, MIA followed. She trailed his car at a distance until it reached the old Vale estate outside the city, a property she'd only ever seen in newspapers. Lucas parked near a side entrance and disappeared inside. MIA waited 10 minutes, then slipped in after him, keeping to the shadows. She followed the sound of his footsteps down a narrow hall and into what looked like a wine cellar. The air was cool and damp. The smell of oak barrels and something else, faint but metallic, filled her nose. Lucas was standing at a long wooden table, speaking quietly to someone she couldn't see. When he moved aside, her breath caught. On the table was a small box, and inside it, resting on black velvet, was her father's wedding ring. "Why do you have that?" The words slipped out before she could stop them. Lucas spun, his expression tightening when he saw her. "MIA. What are you doing here?" "I followed you," she admitted. "And I want to know why my father's ring is here." Lucas's gaze searched hers, then he stepped closer. "Because your father isn't dead." Her knees almost gave out. "What?" "He's alive. And I've been keeping him hidden." "Where?" she demanded. "That's not something I can tell you yet," he said. "Not until I know it's safe." Tears stung her eyes. "You've been lying to me since the day we met." "Yes," Lucas said, his voice steady. "But it was the only way to keep you alive." MIA stood frozen in the cellar, her father's wedding ring still gleaming under the dim light. Lucas's words echoed in her head. "Your father isn't dead." She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but her throat felt tight. "Say it again," she whispered. "He's alive," Lucas repeated quietly. "And I've been protecting him from Richard." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "You're lying. You have to be lying." "I'm not," Lucas said, stepping closer. "Am I? Your father faked his death because he found out Richard was in bed with dangerous people. People who wouldn't hesitate to kill you both." Her voice trembled. "Why didn't he come to me?" "Because he thought staying away was the only way to keep you safe." Her chest felt heavy. "And you knew this the whole time." "I found him months after the funeral," Lucas admitted. "He was hiding, moving from place to place. I convinced him to let me take him somewhere secure. But Richard has been searching for him ever since." Mia's eyes burned. "So this marriage, was it about saving my company or about using me to get to my father?" Lucas's gaze didn't waver. "At first, it was about the business. But when I realized Richard was moving against you, I made a different choice." She swallowed hard. "What choice?" "To keep you under my roof, where I could protect you." Her heart twisted. She didn't want to believe him, but the weight in his voice felt real. Before she could speak again, Lucas's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression turned to stone. "Emma." His voice was tight. "It's him." "Who?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "Richard." Lucas put the call on speaker. "Am I?" Richard's voice crackled through the line, smooth but laced with threat. "I have something you've been looking for." Her blood ran cold. "My father." "That's right," Richard said. "And if you want to see him alive, you'll do exactly what I say." Lucas's voice was ice. "If you hurt him." "Oh, I won't hurt him," Richard interrupted. "As long as MIA comes to me. Alone." Mia's breath caught. "Why me?" "Because," Richard said, "I want to see if you're really your father's daughter. Meet me tomorrow night, the old wine cellar at the abandoned Vale property. And, MIA, bring no one. Or you'll be attending a real funeral this time." The line went dead. Lucas slipped his phone back into his pocket, his jaw tense. "You are not going alone." "You heard him," MIA said. "If you come, he'll kill my father." "If you go alone, he'll kill you," Lucas countered. MIA turned away, pacing. "I can't just do nothing." Lucas moved to stand in front of her, his hands on her shoulders. "Then we plan. Together." She looked into his eyes, searching for any hint of deceit, but all she saw was determination. Still, she knew Richard. And if there was one thing Richard enjoyed, it was twisting situations until no one came out clean. That night, MIA barely slept. Images of her father, alive, scared, possibly hurt, kept flashing through her mind. She kept wondering what she would say if she saw him again. Would she be angry? Relieved? She also couldn't stop thinking about Lucas. His confession, his willingness to admit the marriage hadn't started as protection, had unsettled her in ways she couldn't explain. She didn't trust him completely, but she wasn't sure she could face Richard without him. The next evening, the air was heavy with the scent of rain. MIA dressed in dark clothes, slipping a small pistol into her coat pocket, something she hadn't told Lucas about. Lucas appeared in the doorway. "I told you I'm coming with you," Richard said. "I know what he said," Lucas cut in. "But I'm not letting you walk into a trap alone." She hesitated, then finally nodded. "Fine. But you stay out of sight until I signal." They drove in silence to the abandoned Vale property, an old vineyard that had been left to rot after the feud between their families escalated. The main building loomed ahead, its once proud facade weathered and broken. Inside, the wine cellar stretched deep underground, the air damp and heavy. Richard was waiting. He stood beside a chair, and in that chair, tired, bruised, and pale, was her father. Mia's breath caught. "Dad!" "MIA," her father rasped. "Don't!" "Quiet," Richard snapped. He turned to MIA, his smile thin and cold. "It's touching, isn't it? A little family reunion." "What do you want, Richard?" MIA asked, forcing her voice to stay steady. "I want Lucas Vale," Richard said simply. "You hand him over to me, and I'll let your father walk out of here." Mia's stomach twisted. "Why? What did he do to you?" Richard's smile widened. "He took what I was building. He thinks he's clever. But I'm going to make sure he never plays this game again." Her father spoke up, his voice hoarse. "MIA, listen to me. Richard isn't telling you everything." Shut him up." Richard barked at one of the guards. Mia's mind raced. If she gave Lucas to Richard, her father might live, but Lucas would die. If she refused, her father would be the one in danger. Richard stepped closer. "What's it going to be, niece? Blood or vows?" Her heart pounded. She glanced toward the shadows where Lucas was hiding. Slowly, she reached into her coat pocket. Richard's eyes lit up. "Ah! A smart girl." Mia pulled out the gun, and in one smooth motion, aimed it not at Lucas, but at Richard. A shot rang out. Chaos exploded. Richard staggered back, clutching his shoulder. Lucas emerged from the shadows, firing at the guards. Two dropped instantly, the others fled. MIA ran to her father, cutting the ropes with trembling hands. "You're safe," she whispered, though she wasn't sure if she was saying it for him or for herself. Lucas knelt beside them, blood trickling from a graze on his arm. "We have to move. Now." They helped her father to his feet and hurried out into the rainy night. But as they reached the car, Emma glanced back at the building, at the shadow of her uncle slumped against the wall, his face twisted in fury even through the pain. She knew this wasn't over. But for the first time, she felt like she was holding the cards. Rain poured down in sheets as Lucas drove them away from the abandoned Vale property. Emma sat in the back seat, her arm around her father, feeling every bump in the road jolt through his weakened frame. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" she asked softly. Her father gave a tired smile. "Only my pride." "Pride won't kill you," Lucas said from the front seat, his eyes locked on the road. "Richard might." Her father's expression darkened. "He's not going to stop, MIA. He'll just come at us harder now." "Then we hit first," Lucas said. His voice had that same quiet steel MIA had heard before, the tone of a man already 3 steps ahead in a dangerous game. MIA leaned forward. "What exactly are you thinking?" Lucas glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "I'm thinking Richard is expecting us to hide. We won't. We'll pull him into the open, somewhere on our terms." Her father shook his head. "Richard doesn't walk into traps." Lucas's mouth curved into a thin smile. "He will if I give him something he wants badly enough." MIA caught on quickly. Me. Her father immediately bristled. Absolutely not. She's right, Lucas said, his eyes still on the road. You're the only thing he won't ignore. But this time, we'll control the stage. Back at the penthouse, they laid out the plan. Lucas moved with precision, assigning roles like a general preparing for battle. MIA, he said, you'll meet him, but we'll have multiple exit points. My men will be in place, and your father will be nowhere near the scene. Her father gripped her hand. You don't have to do this, MIA. I do, she said quietly. I'm tired of being a pawn in his games. I want it to end. Lucas studied her for a long moment, then nodded. It ends tomorrow night. That evening, Emma stood by the window, watching the city lights blur in the rain. Lucas joined her, a glass of whiskey in his hand. You know, he said, I didn't think you'd agree to this. She turned her head toward him. You're not the only one who can play dangerous games. He smirked, but his eyes were serious. Once this is over, things will be different. How? She asked, unable to keep the edge of vulnerability from her voice. Lucas's gaze held hers. Because I'll finally be able to tell you everything. No more half-truths. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe this marriage wasn't built entirely on strategy and lies. But she had learned one thing from this war. Trust was currency you couldn't spend twice. The next day, Lucas's men swept the location, an empty warehouse near the docks. Cameras were hidden in every corner, and a team waited in unmarked cars. That night, MIA arrived first, dressed in black, her hair pulled back, the small pistol again in her coat pocket. She stood in the center of the warehouse, every nerve alert. Footsteps echoed. Richard appeared from the shadows, flanked by two men. He was bandaged from the shoulder wound but still carried himself with that arrogant ease she hated. Well, well, he said, smiling faintly. The dutiful niece. Here to surrender. Here to finish it, MIA replied. He chuckled. You sound like him. Who? She asked. Your father, Richard said. Always thought he could beat me if he just played smart enough. But in the end, he was too sentimental. That's why I win. Her pulse quickened. You think this is about winning? It's always about winning, Richard said, just before the overhead lights flickered and a shadow moved behind him. Lucas stepped out from the darkness, gun drawn. Game over, Richard. The standoff was silent except for the rain hammering the roof. Richard smirked at Lucas. You think you've got me? All I see is a man who fell into his own trap. Funny, Lucas said calmly. That's exactly what I wanted you to think. From the corners of the warehouse, Lucas's men emerged, guns trained. Richard's men froze, outnumbered. You can't kill me, Richard said, his smile still fixed. The moment I go missing, my people will come for you both. Lucas's voice was ice. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to destroy you. Publicly. Richard's smirk faltered for the first time. I have enough evidence to bury you for the rest of your life, Lucas continued. Fraud, arson, attempted murder, all nicely tied together with your offshore accounts. And the best part? You'll be alive to watch everything you built burn down. Richard's gaze flicked to MIA. You're going to let him do this to me? She met his eyes without flinching. You did it to yourself. Lucas nodded to his men. They moved in, disarming Richard and his guards. As Richard was dragged away, he shouted, This isn't over, am I? But this time, she didn't believe him. Outside, the rain had stopped. The air smelled clean, almost new. Lucas walked beside her to the car. You okay? He asked. She took a deep breath. I think so. But I need to know something, Lucas. Anything, he said. When you first married me, was any of it real? He didn't look away. At first, no. It was about control, leverage, survival. But somewhere along the way, I realized I'd rather protect you than win against you. Her chest tightened. And now, he said softly, I'm asking if you'll stay, even without the war between us. She studied his face, searching for the man she had grown to know beneath the lies. And for the first time, she let herself believe he might be telling the truth. I'll stay, she said quietly. But this time, on my terms. Lucas smiled faintly. Agreed. A month later, Richard's empire was in ruins. He was behind bars, his name dragged through every news outlet. Her father had moved back into the family estate, slowly rebuilding the vineyard. Lucas had kept his promise, no more secrets between them. Some nights, Amy still woke from dreams of the cellar, the fire, the rain. But then she'd feel Lucas's hand in hers, steady and warm, and she'd remember. The enemy she once swore to hate had become the man she chose to keep. And for the first time in years, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. If you thought marrying your enemy was dangerous, wait until you hear how this ends. Don't miss the next chapter. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let me know in the comments. Would you trust the man who once swore to destroy you?